Hey,
There you go.
well, welcome to everyone to the December 14th, 2021 session of Tangerine SDR and HAMSci technical session. My name is Dave, KV0S, and this week I've been doing a variety of things, doing a little work on collecting sources of RF that could be used for testing and protocol descriptions of those sources. So that's mostly what I've been doing this week. Next on the list, we have Dave, KD0 EAG. Go ahead, Dave.
Hello, everyone. Can't say that I've been doing anything profound. I'll just turn it back over to Dave.
Okay. Next on the list is Bill, AB4EJ. Go ahead, Bill.
Well, good evening to the net. The only thing I've done on this project this week has been some communications back and forth with our campus, that is University of Alabama, cybersecurity people. Apparently, it is, as in the words of Mark Twain, irreligious and irregular to allow someone who was not a UA student or employee to upload data to a UA system. So our plan for uploading data from a local host owned by some random person who came off a Tangerine up to a university system, our central control system, is, well, it's like Mr. Monopoly being confronted with somebody wearing a hat, you know, a baseball cap backwards on their head. I mean, just, so anyway, so we think we're making progress on that. We think we should be able to, I mean, I can always shame them and say, okay, guys, you want me to tell the National Science Foundation
Yes.
we can't do this?
Yes.
Really? So anyway,
Return the money.
I think we should be able to make some progress on that, but the jury is still out. We'll see. I mean,
Yes.
it can be escalated if need be. I think we
Yes.
can make it happen. But that was my sum total of my accomplishments this week, was to get in that fight. So back to that.
Seems like they can set up a sandbox that's separate from their other stuff.
As a one-time IT manager, I know the only word you're required to know for that job is no. No.
Well, you know, it's like being a lawyer. I mean, always go with the lowest risk
Yes.
answer, and the lowest risk is always no.
Yes.
So we'll see. I think we'll get it. I think we'll get it, but it may take a little while. So we'll see.
And I learned long ago that a lawyer will keep you out of trouble. All you have to do is go out of business and you won't have
Yes.
any trouble.
Yes. Well, let's go on down the list. Next on the list is Jim, K4BSE. Go ahead, Jim.
Well, unfortunately, I haven't done as much as the other people who've already spoken. Being that my wife and I are both on the DL, that's kind of occupied too much time recently. Feel badly about that. I've got things to do. Just continuing to watch the grape is about all I've been doing. And I have not had any more trouble with the receiver this week. So maybe it was all self-induced. Seeing a little bit of different characteristics in WWV reception, but that may just be seasonal. Back to net, K4BSE.
Fine business. And next on the list is David Waugh, KE8QEP. Sounds like you have a sob story.
Well, yeah, my magnetometer became a silent compass on Saturday, I guess, and there was water infiltration. I think probably maybe 2 or 3 tablespoons. I think it had been occurring for a number of probably for months, slowly. But then we had a big rainstorm and it finally, there was enough water that it shorted out the board. I don't think the RM 3100 actually got wet. I'm still working on the magnetopsy, but it appears that some water was infiltrating through the pigtail I had coming out of the PVC, and that was not flooded, silicone flooded cable, because I felt that was too stiff to connect to the board. And that was clearly a mistake on my part. And when I cut that open, it wasn't full of water, but there was certainly moisture in there. And then the cable gland that actually took the Ethernet, there were 2 screw connections. And I think both of those were watertight, but there was this cable gland here, and I think that let in water. So it stopped working, and I'll have to try to find another board. And this wouldn't have, I think, been an issue had the head of the magnetometer been above ground, but because I have this dog here that's a pest, I can't have the head of the PVC pipe above grade, so it's below grade, and we have a wet backyard.
Yep.
But I can't blame that on the dog.
Yep.
Back to you, Dave.
Well, fine business. You and I are both in the club of destroying one magnetometer. Next on the list.
I've
Oh,
burned
that's
up
right.
one of them too.
Okay, there's
I
3
had
of
2
us.
of them, and yeah, they're not necessarily as robust as we would like, but this is version 1, so
Yep.
yeah.
Well, and I guess what would have been nice is, and maybe I'll do this in the next installation if I can get new boards, or new board, is have some kind of humidity sensor or some way of seeing when there's an issue. And I think for most people, it won't be a problem, but for my personal installation, it's not ideal.
Just do a
NSF has
conformal
not
coating.
offered to regrade my backyard.
Just do conformal coating on the board. You'll be all set.
Okay, well, I could try that.
Yeah, but if you ever have to make a change, forget it.
Yes.
It's
David, it's not a matter of cleaning the boards.
you could do it, but
No.
you're talking about after you conformal coat or after you've been submerged in water.
After it's been submerged or got water on it.
Well, I tell you what, Dave, I'll give you a new board if you send me your old board, and I can do an autopsy on it, because I did Dave's board the same way, and there was no way his board was ever coming back to life, because it was like,
Okay, well,
Tree
I'm
is-
happy to send it to you, and I haven't tried cleaning it. In an email, I sent some semi close-up pictures. I can take some under the microscope at work.
yeah, I saw those, and
I haven't,
that below the RJ45 looks nasty.
yeah, there's some green stuff, and there's stuff in the RJ45, and I think,
Yep.
water was seeping in multiple places.
Yeah, and once you get electrolytic action, it's pretty much over for the board.
But do you think that's something that could have happened in just 24 hours? I mean, my
Yeah.
guess.
Hmm?
Okay, because it's been flooded multiple times, or at least, the PVC pipe submerged. But
Once you get water on circuits that have power on them, it can happen really fast. I mean,
Yeah.
if you ever dropped a cell phone in water, I mean, it can be literally minutes and it can be done for. So whether we can clean it up and make it work again, I don't know. We can try.
Oh, well, can we go on down the list?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there.
Okay, next on the list, we have Gary, AF8A. Go ahead, Gary.
Hey, good evening, everyone. I got some progress to report here on my own personal education. Spent a little time learning some Linux commands this week. how to install and build FL Rig and FL Digi from source on a Raspberry Pi. Got all that up and running, so I felt pretty good about that. Didn't let any smoke out of the Pi, so that's always a plus. But on to bigger and better things, I guess. A little bit of knowledge never hurts. Back to that.
Very good. And next on the list is James, KG4DSG. Go ahead, James.
Good evening, Dave and the group. I'm just sitting listening in as usual. Nothing really to add. I did post a link to a crowdfunding for a Raspberry Pi SDR hat that is gone active. It looks interesting. It plugs into a Pi Zero. Pretty cheap, pretty small. If you're interested, take a look. With that, back to net.
Thanks a lot. Next on the list is Jay, WB8SBI. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah. Good evening to all my fraternal brothers in amateur radio out there. Not a whole heck of a lot going on up here in the suburbs of Detroit, but it just occurred to me that regarding the dog getting into the stuff in the backyard, well, you know, his call sign is K9DOG, and he is a DX hound, and you haven't been giving him access to the radio enough for him to get on the air. So that's how he's taking his revenge. So, you know, tummy scratch and doggy ration are fine, but get him on, you know, he needs to be on the air more. FT8, CW, doesn't matter. He just wants some airtime. Other than that, guys, take care. And if I don't talk to you in the next meeting, and beforehand, happy holidays to all, and keep staying safe.
Okay. And next on the list is Joe, W7LUX. Go ahead, Joe.
Good evening, Dave, and everybody in the group here. Many years ago, actually decades ago, when I was in the Navy, we managed to dump a P-2 Neptune anti-submarine warfare aircraft into the Pacific Ocean. And we dug it up and took a big crane out there and picked it up a day or two later, brought it back in. I was in electronics. We tried to resurrect those circuit boards and all the electronics, never got any of it to work again. So, of course, that was in salt water, but it's sometimes a real task. Been watching the grape and trying to remember to switch all the stuff back to the grape after I'm done using the radio for amateur radio communications, and finishing up touches for the presentation on Wednesday. Thank you, Dave.
Very good. And next on the list is Jonathan, KC3EEY. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Hi, everybody. I had quite a busy week this week. The biggest news is some of you might know that me and Nathaniel were able to install both my VLF system and magnetometer at his house, and they are currently up and operating. It was actually quite exciting. On Friday, I went over his house. I installed the VLF antenna on the mast. I wired it up. I also installed the ground magnetometer in the ground. I got it leveled. It's not calibrated yet, but it is leveled. I ran into some challenges with terminating with putting RJ45 plugs on really thick direct burial Cat 6. There was a special technique that's much different than with Cat 5, and it obviously helps if you have the right tools. So we got the right tools, and I was able to make the crimps successfully, and they work. It just took some time for me to do, but I was able to get my VLF system up and running. The filtering works well. It's monitoring NAA. It's catching false event detections, rising tones from motors starting up. And that means that it can also detect rising tones of dawn chorus and falling tones of whistles. So the receiver is sensitive enough, and the software is working really well. I have access to it from my house, and I can also listen to its live stream. I'm going to have a live stream for everybody to listen to shortly. I'm going to have Paul add it to his list of receivers. The magnetometer also works to my disbelief. Initially, I thought that I crimped the plug on the outside wrong, but I didn't. It was reading the X, Y, and Z axis of the magnetometer, and it was reading the remote temperature as well. Everything seemed to be working quite well. And while I was doing some of the cabling work, Nathaniel was working on some of his papers for NASA. Nathaniel is at AGU right now, obviously, everyone knows. So he probably can't join. And one last thing, I did some more investigation on that pulse per second jitter problem that I had on the GPS module. I believe it's related to reception, because at Nathaniel's house, the GPS antenna is better placed, and the timing seems to be working much better. So I'm really happy about that. Other than that, that's all I have. Back to the net.
Well, fine business. And next on the list is Mike AAAK. Go ahead.
Thank you. Greetings to everyone listening. Back to you, Dave.
Fine business. And then Scotty jumped up to the top of the list. So we'll call on Scotty, WA2 DFI. Go ahead, Scotty.
Okay, not much going on this week, except with the new house and the holidays coming up. I think I can help Dave out with this board here. I think this board's repairable, but we'll have to see. Here's Dave Larson. Your board was much worse condition than this one, I think.
Yes.
I think it maybe had been underwater longer,
Yes.
damp longer. So, because there were traces that were eaten away on yours that there just was not worth fixing. But this one looks like you might be able to remove the connector and clean it off and replace the connector with one that doesn't have seaweed in it, and and it might work. So anyway, I can send you a new one, Dave, and you send me back this one at your leisure, and I would be happy to take a look at it because I'm always looking to investigate failures and see if maybe, I mean, conformal coating isn't out of the question. It's not hard to do. It makes the board almost impossible to rework, but we're not really reworking these anyway. These are pretty well proven. So the spray of conformal coating might be in order, especially seeing as how they are really at risk for being submerged. And if we don't get all the seals just right, you can get this problem. So, and that picture you have on the email, that pipe full of water, is that where your magnetometer was, buried in that pipe? In that, you're muted.
That's a sprinkler box. And so the pipe was totally submerged. Actually, in the PVC pipe, there was only, I think, a couple tablespoons of water, but I think it dripped down the Ethernet cable.
Came in through the cable. Yeah, that's why the
onto the board
is gross. And if you look at the end of the cable, it looks like things are growing in there.
Yeah, inside the RJ45 female connector, there's corrosion, and then underneath it, there's corrosion. I think the RM31 didn't experience any adverse conditions. And in one of the photos I sent, the bottom of the board shows some water, but I think that may have been just when I pulled it out of the ground and I was shaking it to try to figure out, if there was actually water in there, but it was certainly not full. It never got submerged.
Yeah.
It
But the
was-
water had ran over the active part of the board, getting from
Yeah.
there, from the cable to the bottom of the pipe. So, and that water, I mean, if it's submerged in that, I bet that's a real good conductor with all the junk that's in that. So, yeah, dirt
I
and
mean-
plant matter and things.
I mean, groundwater is an obvious concern. The other thing I'd be worried about is humidity, because there's really no way to seal anything against the atmosphere. I mean, David will tell you, here in Northeast Ohio, Saturday, it went from the low 60s Saturday morning into
Yeah.
the 30s in the evening.
Yes.
Yeah.
High humidity and rain and everything else. And boy, that
So-
stuff's going to condense inside the pipes and
So some desiccant in the pipe is really worthwhile.
Well,
Yeah, there you
and
go.
I had desiccant in the bottom of the pipe. And again, I mean, water may have been infiltrating for a long time. And when I split open I think it was Cat 6, it was the kind where each pair has its own shield, not just one shield around all of them. And there were some little water droplets in there, but it was not waterlogged, so to
The
speak.
water didn't pour out. It was just wet.
Yeah, I mean, it was wet inside the cable, and I think that probably accumulated over a long time. And it may be that, what finally killed it is water bypassing the gland. And I noticed on the inside of the gland grommet, there was some mud, probably, from prior adjustments
Yeah.
that made it not seal. And then exterior to that, I had a, water resistant, waterproof junction for the pigtail coming out of the PVC. And that was slathered with dielectric grease. And even though that got filled with water, I don't think that was actually the failure point. So if I had flooded cable going into the PVC pipe, which I will do next time, that might have gone a long way.
Yeah.
But
Just when I see green on here, that's a dead giveaway of some electrolytic action with the copper.
yeah,
But it also could just be green plant matter, because this looks like that water is filled with it. So it's hard to say what.
I think that's copper corrosion is my best guess.
Since the
But-
traces are so narrow, usually once that starts, it's pretty much dead. You're not going to be able to fix it. And the boards don't cost enough to spend a whole lot of time trying to put bypass wires on and fix it. It's better just to put a new one in.
And I think the biggest mistake was I didn't use flooded cable going into the PVC, which I should have. And it would be nice, and maybe I can install some kind of humidity sensor. And I realize that you may not want to run it all the time because that may interfere with the magnetometer, but it would have been useful to have some idea that something was going cattywampus beforehand. But again, this was, I think, an extreme installation, and most normal people have backyards that aren't swamps. And if I simply had the head above the ground level,
And
I mean-
that was the preferred installation anyway, but you had reasons to not do it that way. So
yeah, and I knew that was a risk, but it's still, I mean, it got flooded at least 3 or 4 times before, or this happened. So it was fairly robust.
yeah, I'm just wondering if it might be worthwhile to find a I2C sensor, humidity sensor, and put it on the board somewhere And if that will be worthwhile in the final unit rather than make these, because we're really close to just producing these in by the hundreds. But if it's going to add cost and it's going to take some time to do that, and then we'll have to modify the software to read that and do something, alarm or some kind of warning saying, because that's not really part of what we're reading. It's kind of a warning that you're headed for disaster if you see high humidity.
Yeah, and that may or may not be worth it. And I think it could influence the magnetometer, but I suppose the program could run it once a day.
Yeah, you would. Yeah, or I mean, you're running the magnetometer, I think, once a minute anyway. So but you're aggregating, you're integrating over that minute, and
or once a second.
Or once a second. But the thing is, the humidity sensor you could read before you started aggregating, because the humidity sensor you just boom read once. You wouldn't have to get some super accurate integrated reading for that, because it would be just a danger level that you're looking for.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, I'll take a look at that and see how easy it would be, because
I mean, the thing you got to think about then is, what do you tell the users? You know, when you hit 65% relative humidity, you have to go and warm it up and bring it in the house. I mean, that's the next thing is,
right.
Once you got the information, what do you do with it?
Kind of like service light, you know, time
Yeah.
to service your unit. There's something imminently going to be failing if you do not.
Or
And
you
then
put black tape over it, one or the other.
Yeah, and then what level is it that's dangerous? 50%, 70%, 90%? I mean, how do we know? Because I would suggest if there's any water in the bottom of the pipe, that the humidity level inside the pipe is probably at 100%.
Yeah.
So if there's any condensed, then there's 100% vapor. So.
Well,
This is good. I mean, it gave its life with value. That's a good thing.
Well, especially if we end up putting a humidity sensor in and make the thing more robust by saying, hey, look, you know, here's a warning. It's like and maybe if we can make it so you can pull it out of the ground in time to save it, that would be the only really use for it. I mean, it's like the engine fail light on my VW Beetle. It's like the oil pressure light, when it comes on, the engine's destroyed. It's too late. So it's not much use.
Well, and I suppose, I mean, I don't think the cost of these boards is going to be too high. I mean, maybe it's just you wait till it fails because it's just not worth,
yeah,
you know, getting some advanced warning. And honestly, I mean, you know, I don't know what the boards are going to cost, but if let's say it's $50, I mean, in some ways, you know, reinstalling it, getting all the new PVC and all that is almost that's almost the harder part than paying to replace the board.
We have to have some way to run up the production numbers, right?
Well, yeah.
But you get a reputation really fast when you do that.
But this could be an excuse to regrade my backyard because
So
I can't keep paying for these $50 magnetometer boards. So we'll spend $10,000 and have our backyard regraded.
that's the ham response, right? Is $10,000 to save a $50 problem from recurring.
or David, you could do what Scotty did and move.
Well, yeah, that's another option.
To the desert, yeah.
In Arizona, we have very little swamp. So, and we're in Phoenix anyway.
You do, but it's 100 million years old, so it's not a problem.
Yeah. No,
But
see,
the other thing is too, you know, I mean, we're learning something here. If that thing were sticking out of the ground and the dog was an issue, what you probably need is a plastic rock to put over it to keep the dog away from it.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, that may be a cheaper solution.
see, in Arizona, when the ground is dry, we call it a river. And when it's wet, we call it a flood.
Actually, I hadn't thought about one of those plastic rocks. That could work, but I think the dog would just sit on it. Like
Well,
Snoopy.
if
that would
that's
be
all
the
he
thing.
did to it, you're doing okay. There's other things he could do that would be worse.
Well, I mean, all that's been done. But Yeah, that's the plastic rock is an interesting.
How about some real rocks and pile them up all around it?
Well, that sounds like work too. So.
You got to watch out because it seems to me that Hillman had a problem when he mounted his on a rock that had high iron content.
Yes.
Wasn't that, Dave, wasn't that the problem that he had
Yes.
originally?
Oh, because he's in New Jersey,
New
right?
Jersey.
Oh, it was probably the trap rock.
And it was on the New Jersey, Pennsylvania line.
Yeah, it was probably trap rock and that's a basaltic mafic rock.
Yes. So you're our local geologist, right?
Hey, so here's something interesting. They make a humidity temperature sensor. So suppose we just replace our temperature sensor with a humidity and temperature sensor, we're all set.
Well, it depends on how many pins you have, right?
Right. So if I can find one that'll drop in, haha, good luck with that. Even if I have to rearrange the pins, if it doesn't have any extra pins.
Yes.
So ideally what it has is the same pin out, but it just has more I2C registers that you read.
Yeah.
But Jules isn't here, but he's very concerned about pestering the I2C bus and its effect on the magnetometer. So,
well, and so that's a software issue, I think, because you really don't need to read the relative humidity or the temperature very often. So you can make those measurements while you're not reading the magnetometer.
And even once every 10 minutes.
Once every 10 minutes, right?
Scotty, I have a question. Do you have any update on missing part? I guess I can say singular missing part saga.
Oh yeah, so we went back to the distributor to check on the status of our parts. And by the way, we got in the second to last part, which was the USB 3 part. So that's in stock now. The only part we're missing is the FPGA, and the story that we originally got was that the Max 10 parts that we had ordered back in like March that order was canceled because when we put in our order for ARIA 10 parts, that they assumed that these were replacing the Max 10 parts and therefore that we could cancel the early order, which of course is not the case. Well, it turns out the Max 10 order was not the one that was canceled. So that's still on the books. The ARIA 10 one was canceled, which was the one that I didn't really have the money to pay for until we get another grant. So I'm not too worried about those. So the rumor is that it's loosening up a little bit because I'm hearing that a few customers are getting some parts. So, and we don't need very many. We're not exactly on the 1,000 piece per month track. So we just need 25 parts. So it may be that we get parts here coming up in Q1 of 22 and that we can fire away. So that will be good news if that happens. And meanwhile, I'm going to go chase after them and expect an extreme favor because they canceled my ARIA 10 order. They owe me. So how about some Max 10 parts a little earlier? That's what I'll take that as my favor back.
Yeah.
If that works. But the problem, of course, is that the part we're using is not a common part, not a common variant of the Max 10. So we can't, and what my distributors or my rep says is that since everything is on allocation now, you can't really do the borrow now, pay back later trick that he used to be able to do. So we're kind of stuck with just waiting. We can't pilfer from someone and then pay them back, next month and the month after. But one of our other customers who was just, it's kind of like the sailors trapped in the USS Arizona after Pearl Harbor. They're crying for help and you can't get to them. Your customers are crying for help and you can't get them any parts. It's like, I don't have any magic source. But it turns out that a few of them did get parts. So that is
Okay.
encouraging. If they got some, maybe we'll be able to get some. Of course, they're in production, so they get priority over us. But also, we need very few, so that helps us. So I'm getting a little more optimistic, although I'm getting discouraged, but I'm trying to be optimistic because, as a hardware guy, I might as well retire if I can't get any parts. You quote me 2023 times. I can't tell my customer, oh, here's your board design, but by the way, it's 14 months before you can get parts.
All right.
That just doesn't work. And I've got a couple customers that want FPGA designs, and in good faith, I can't say, yeah, sure, pay me money, I'll do your design, and then, oh, well, by the way, you can't get any parts, so sorry. I have to be upfront and tell them, and that's very difficult to do business that way, to have them want to really, do business when they can't get any parts. So, and the big plant that's going in Phoenix here, rumor has it, it's progressing on, but it's like a 5-year. It'll be maybe 4 more years before we see any chips out of that plant, the TSMC plant that's going in Phoenix. I've heard it's like 100 acres, huge, big TSMC plant up on Northwest Phoenix that they're working on. And it's going to be done in phases so that they'll start getting chips off of it in 5 years from when they started, but they're going to continue to build additional branches of the plant to ramp it up. So, and I had heard they also either, I guess they're not getting close to opening, but they're building a big plant in Texas too. So I sure hope so. I'd like to see an end to this.
Yes.
It looks like we got some new people that popped in.
Oh, let's see.
Nathaniel made it back from the conference.
Nathaniel, you
Or
want
from
any
the middle of
comments,
the conference.
Nathaniel?
You're muted. You're muted, Nathaniel.
Queens.
There you go.
How are you? I think
Pretty
I
good.
made it through day 1 of the AGU conference. David McGaw, I just had dinner with Jim LaBelle, so it was very nice. Everything,
very
I think
good.
things are going very well here. So Diego Sanchez gave his poster this afternoon. It was very well received. There were a number of senior scientists who came up to me and they said, wow, HAMSI's still here and you're actually doing well. So I think they were pretty amazed at that, because this is actually the 6-year anniversary of when I first made the HAMSI website, right before AGU in 2015, when I should have been working on my dissertation. And instead I made the HAMSI website.
So they were amazed that it survived?
Yeah.
All the time?
Yeah. Because I mean, HAMSI survived and we've gotten a significant amount of NSF and NASA funding. And so this has all been really, really good. And today, I have officially opened up, it's kind of a soft opening, but if you go to hamsci.org right now, now have HAMSI annual workshop, the weather connection in Huntsville, Alabama, and you can click on that. It'll take you here and you can go ahead and you can submit abstracts.
Woohoo!
Okay.
So
All right.
yeah, so that is a new development as of this morning. I put
I don't
all
think
that.
that's abstract. I think that's rather concrete.
Yeah, and
Always a
it's
wise guy.
It's actually worked out really well. At first I was really bummed that we had to move from Scranton, but I think picking Huntsville, Alabama has worked out great because in addition to Bill wanting to have it in Alabama, which is really nice, Huntsville is right near NASA Marshall Space Flight Center, and the people there have been very, very helpful and encouraging, and they want to really, participate. They're not just like, oh, it's great you're here. They're like actively helping us, find venues and things like that. So they offered to be listed as members of the local organizing committee. So we have all these NASA Marshall Spaceflight people there. Rob Suggs, NN4NT, has volunteered to organize a special event station for the Hamsci workshop to be set up at the event. I think it's shaping up really nicely.
That's
So,
good.
yeah, and it's great since we just got the NASA funding this year. So it's a good play in there. I'm doing one more last confirmation of the guest speakers. I have to say some of them are coming from out of the country and have some potential health issues. So some of the guests invited speakers may end up being virtual, even though they don't really want to be. It just may be the way it is. But we have a lot of people. Jim LaBelle is really excited about this. He was showing me some data from Antarctica that he wants to present there. Gareth Perry said he's planning on coming. So, I'm starting to show this at the meeting here. I'll try to advertise it at our session over the next few days. So I'm really excited about this.
That's great. You finally got Jim on the hook.
Yep.
Yeah, he was super excited. So
yeah, I've been working on him for a while.
Yeah,
that's great.
Dave, do
and
you
then
want to make any? Oh, Nathaniel's still going.
yeah, and then also on the front page of the Hamsci website, I wrote a little article about the different Hamsci presentations at AGU this week. So you can go ahead and you can see these things. So Elizabeth Hernandez had a poster today, and unfortunately I missed it. I feel really badly. So I think I might see her at dinner on Thursday, but I heard her poster was good. So let's see if I photos from the.
So I was going to give David N1HAC do you have any comments?
I don't have too much. I'm sorry I'm late and missed most of this, but we had a dress rehearsal for our Christmas Revels performance that's this next weekend. I am interested to know where the project is in terms of the adapter card, see if we can actually get some real data, but I don't know what Scotty had to say about that.
Still working on it.
Okay.
And it has a little bit of promise on actually getting some Max 10 parts.
Oh, very good.
If that happens, we'll have real data engines.
Right.
Oh,
well, it was interesting
will-
to hear about TSMC because, with all the saber rattling going on in Taiwan, I'm not surprised that they're getting some plants over here.
So you think you might be able to get Max 10, Scotty?
I might be able to. It's at least I'm not told like hell no as soon as I pick up the phone. When you don't hear totally negative and you hear, well, that customer got some, and then there's promise. So
That's all I want for Christmas.
that's what I want for Christmas is just
Yeah.
25 parts. That's all I need. I have all the rest. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, we're willing to pay for our own Christmas present. We just want to
That's right.
show up.
That's right. We'll buy our own present.
Hey, Nathaniel.
Yes.
A couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago, AMSAT had its annual meeting there at exactly the same place where next year's going to be the Marshall Space Flight Center, which is physically located on the Redstone Arsenal base. So
Yes.
that's where also a space station control center is located for the space station. And they have tours there. However, it's restricted to US citizens. So if you want to go on that tour, everybody bring proof of citizenship, and the venue is a real nice place. So that's
Cool.
wanted to let you know about that for anybody that hasn't been there yet.
But the actual workshop, our part is at the museum that you don't need citizenship for.
Oh no, yeah, the museum is open. And by the
Yes.
way, it's a great museum. If you haven't been there, bring your camera. It is really, really great.
Yeah. And museum admission will be included with registration.
Great. Yeah. Have you been there, Nathaniel?
No, no, I'm excited.
Okay, if possible, yeah, we also, if you could set aside time for the tour of the base, because there's a lot of historical items there that from the bus that you can tour around. They also have a visitor center. And once you're in the Space Center, the museum itself, they have a Saturn V, the entire thing nose to tail. Escape Center was used as a prototype development. It's sitting on its side. It's laying on its side, and they built the building around. So it's a full scale, the real one that was used for, it never flew, but it was a production intent. And that's impressive. So it's really a great museum. This is going to be good, really
Yeah.
good.
I'm excited.
I ran into that citizenship access thing out in at Moffett a couple of years ago. And it turned out your driver's license was, for anybody who was a citizen at least, was perfectly adequate, except that Missouri was the very last state to do whatever that thing was that we had some crazies here.
Real ID.
The real ID, they were the very last ones to participate in that.
Well, New
They were
Hampshire
sure it
must have
was
been
a plot.
second to last.
Yeah, well, they were sure it was a plot to take away their guns. And so I had some difficulty. I had to do some extra papers, but even Missouri has finally, come under the sway. And but people on green, I don't know what the deal is with green cards, or foreign citizens might have some other difficulty, but
yeah, getting into the Space Museum itself is not a problem. But if you want to go on to Redstone Arsenal for the tour, that's where there may be an issue.
Yeah.
To the actual the actual Marshall Space Flight Center, the control room, because it's on a military base.
Is the Redstone Arsenal where Von Braun was?
Correct.
Got it.
Yeah.
Where he stored his Redstone rocket to test the what is it? The effects of long-term storage.
I couldn't tell you, but there are.
You know that story?
No, I'm not familiar with that.
That's how he had a rocket ready when Vanguard blew up, and they came to him and said, "When can you get something in the air?" He said, "Well, let me work on it." Well, he had put a Redstone away in storage for this purpose, and the way he justified it is he was testing the effects of long-term storage on a Redstone missile.
Yeah. So anyway, this is going to be good. It's a very interesting facility, and the hotel does have a airport shuttle when you fly in. It's you just got to make arrangements in advance, and it is a very nice hotel.
We need to give a lot of credit to Bill Engelke here, because he's the one that suggested we come to Huntsville. So if Bill Engelke weren't there to say, "Nathaniel, we should go to Huntsville," we wouldn't be going to Huntsville. So this is very exciting.
I think that was a good suggestion.
Yep.
Yeah, much better than coming to the University of Alabama. The UA is kind of in a out of the way location, and transportation would be a nightmare, but Huntsville is right there. So
yeah, it's got a major airport, so flying in, all the major airlines go there.
Flying to Huntsville.
Yeah.
That'd be really good.
This is going to be good.
Yeah. Jonathan, did you show the photos?
No is the answer.
You did not show. Did he talk about it?
Yes.
Can you repeat that again? You broke up a little bit.
I asked if you showed the photos from this weekend.
Oh no, I did not have the Google Photos link. There it is.
There it is. Oh, there's my house. Here's our trench. Here's the conduit coming out of it. there is the ground magnetometer. There is Jonathan's VLF receiver.
And one of the things, so what I did was the receiver is enclosed in that pipe, and it's so everything is very watertight, but also easy to get at because there's a threaded fitting, and yeah, actually right near where his mouse is, there's a threaded fitting, and you simply unscrew that, and then the whole core comes out. And if you have to disconnect the cable or change an IC or something like that, it's very easily accessible. So so far it's been really reliable. It was quite windy Saturday night. It was bopping around a bit, but it's loose in the ground, so it moves with the wind, and you don't get a lot of wind noise, which is nice. So I'm really happy with it. And I was also able to get the magnetometer just about perfectly level.
Yeah, that's impressive because I mean, I know it took a lot of work to get to this point. I mean, a lot of work. So
Thank you. Yeah, we worked very hard, but it's nice when everything all comes together and we have the finished product. So I'm very happy, and so is Nathaniel.
So yes, and I'm just did
You may
you
not want to
consider
share.
what's that?
Go ahead.
We are just getting the just connecting to the magnetometer here. 91, I think. CDR. I guess the 4, right? So there it is.
Yep.
Now you just need to get hooked up to the Linode.
It's already
It is
done.
Okay.
already done.
So it's sending everything to the Linode, and now we just have to analyze it.
Now is that the local temperature? Does that look normal?
Eight degrees. Yes, that's C.
No. I mean the local temperature, not the remote.
That's the temperature of the Pi.
That's sitting right above the on the boards that we're currently using. It's not a very meaningful number because it's that temperature sensor is sitting
You may
right
be
above
talking about the local temperature 31.
Yeah,
That's
that's
what I
sitting
mean.
right above the Raspberry Pi CPU.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
Oh, okay.
So it's warm.
And the one that's remote at 8, that's reasonable too.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. I was just wondering because the temperature sensor looks to be really close to the warm CPU, so that's
Yeah,
probably why it's so.
it's pretty
hot.
useless.
Yeah.
Tells you how hot the CPU is.
Yep.
So Dave Witten,
Yeah.
if we were to change out that sensor, that temperature sensor with a temperature and humidity sensor, it looks like the cost penalty is right around 50 cents.
Well,
So if I send you a couple of part numbers for sensors, could you take a look at them and see what the software impact would be of changing that out with the 9808?
Sure, sure. I can, well, you want me to just look at the specs? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm the specs for what we need are going to be way, I mean, like 14 bits of temperature or of humidity accuracy are like way beyond what we need. I'm
Yeah.
just looking at how easy would it be to integrate it in with the existing software with the extra I2C registers. That's kind of where I'm.
Yeah, send it to me and I'll have a look.
Okay, so there's a couple of 3 low-cost ones that in quantity, in 100 unit quantities are only about 50 cents more than the single temperature sensor. So we could use any of those and they're all in stock and available. So that might be they are a different footprint, unfortunately, so they wouldn't fit on our PC board. But what I think I would do is I would go ahead and if you think it looks reasonable, I would go ahead and buy 1,000 blank PC boards or 500 blank PC boards and just assemble a few and test them.
Yeah.
And then if they tested out good, we would assemble the rest of them, and then we'd have quantities of these with both temperature and humidity sensors.
The only question I have just right off the top of my head is we picked that particular sensor because it was fair, it had a fairly, it was good to about an 1/8 of a degree or something Celsius, and it was fairly precision temperature, and some, they vary.
So this one I'm looking at is accurate to plus or minus 0.15 degrees, which is just a little more than 1/8.
Yeah, well, that's I don't think we're using the 1/8. I think we're probably using a step above that anyway. So yeah, it sounds like it could work. Yeah,
And
send
what
me
do
that
you-
link.
What are you thinking, Scotty, to tell if it's getting water in it?
Right, to have kind of like a water ingress warning to say, oh, your relative humidity is high, check the pipe. Especially after what happened with David's.
And the indoor temperature sensor actually, I mean, it tracks my heating fairly well. And in some ways, I think that probably shouldn't be reported publicly because, that between that and the magnetometer that can sense cars, it's sort of like a do-it-yourself figure out when someone's not home or on vacation. So that indoor temperature sensor, although it's picking up things from the Raspberry Pi, it pretty much tracks your indoor temperature, and you can see when you look at other people's data, you can see what their heating system's doing and when they have it set for nighttime, daytime.
You can do like what the power company does here with us. They send you an evaluation of how bad you are compared to everyone else because you're using more power than you're supposed to be. And it's interesting because we got smart thermostats about 2 years ago, literally cut our power bill in half, okay, more than in half. And I used to get the nasty notes for the user evaluation, and it would compare us to all the neighbors as far as how much electricity we used. Well, even after I put the thermostats in, we still get the notice that we're worse than the neighbors. We're wasteful. We use too much power. We need to have a homeowner survey or something done. And I mean, I got extra insulation. I got double pane windows. I got smart thermostats. I got pretty much everything you can do, and I'm still bad. So, so I give up. I think they're just trying to make me feel bad.
Your neighbors are penguins.
Yeah, that's right. Either that or like hot boxes, because around here in the summer, it's.
Well, that's true.
All those FPGAs firing up.
That's right. I'm mining Bitcoins here. That's it. Anyway, the sensor is made by Sciosense. I never heard of them, but it is marketed by Renaissance, I think, which is a big name player. So that's a good thing.
Uh-huh. Sure.
Anyway, like I said, there's 3 or 4 of them. And actually, it looks to me like there's several of them that have the same package type. So if we could make several of them that were interchangeable on the PCB, then we would help eliminate the problem of, oh, I can't get brand A, I go to brand B.
Sure. Well, if you think it's worth, I'll tell you whether it's a lot of difficulty to do with the software, but if you think if it's worth it from a hardware perspective, that
Yeah.
would be, you could put 2 wires down there, and if they short out, you could see if they short now and then, and if they short out, there probably is water in there too.
Yeah, like just print a grid on the board and check to
Yeah.
see if it's shorted.
Yeah.
Well, and redesign, you shouldn't redesign the board because I'm too cheap to have my backyard regraded. I mean,
Well,
we have to keep
we
things
could,
in
I'll tell you
perspective.
what, Dave, we'll just raise the price of the boards to you since you're a repeat offender, customer. And then that'll encourage you to regrade your backyard, right?
I'm sure a 50-cent part's gonna cause him to spend
Well, and the thing is,
$10,000.
we're gonna take an 8-pin part off that's 2 by 2 millimeters, and we're gonna put a 2 by 2 millimeter part in its place, and we're gonna get both readings instead. And it's gonna cost 50 cents more. So I'm not gonna have any heartburn over that because it's not even gonna be a board relayout. It's gonna be just a board mod.
Sure.
And I think this is actually the perfect thing that we should find out when we're testing the board, that this might be something useful. And how else will we have found it out without Dave and Dave flooding their boards out?
Yes, I think the thing is, there's going to be a lot of people that aren't going to pay a lot of attention. And we have a group here that's probably pays more attention than your average user.
And in fact, maybe they won't pay attention to the warning either, but
Yeah.
at least you can say you warned them.
Yes.
So this on the screen here, this is the amplitude and phase of NAA at 24 kilohertz that I've been recording on the system. And initially, what happened was I put in the wrong channel in the runtime option, so it was actually recording from the GPS pulse per second signal, which it was giving me a constant amplitude noise, which I thought was weird. But then I looked at the config, and it was the wrong channel. But I was able to get the right channel up, and this is actually working the way that it should. So if a sudden ionospheric disturbance occurs, we should be able to see it. I also got some false detections, as I was mentioning. They were motors that were starting up in the local environment. Maybe someone's washing machine, or fan motor, or something like that. Whenever a motor starts up, it generates a rising tone. So the detector actually detected those and registered those as events. So what you have to do is you have to go through every now and then and go through your events and delete the motors starting up, or birds can like if a bird were to land on the antenna and start chirping, that sound will be transferred to the antenna because it's microphonic, and that'll register as an event.
You sure
So-
those rising chirps aren't gravity waves? Deb,
Well,
I'm just saying that LIGO has signals like that.
That's true. These kind of happen on the on the what's the temporal range that you're talking about?
Oh, I'm totally kidding. I'm saying that um, coalescing neutron stars or black holes have a rising characteristic at about that frequency range.
Oh, okay.
But I doubt that your antenna would be picking it up.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, the PI, one of the PIs of the LIGO experiment, Dr. Robert Schofield, requested VLF data from Paul. Paul didn't have the data resolution that was needed, so so another person that was running a receiver on his network actually recorded 192 kilohertz data, and he had like a couple months of it. So Paul actually got the data from his server, and he gave it to Dr. Robert Schofield because he wanted to verify that the gravity wave or the detection wasn't a spheric.
Right.
That's what he wanted to.
Yeah, that's neat. That actually is.
Yeah.
He was what? Yeah. So LIGO was wondering if they were picking up VLF.
Right. So like, so these, so this receiver network and these receivers and systems recording all this data contributed to one of the most exciting discoveries as of late. So this is really cool stuff. So I'm hoping that I could contribute in a very similar manner. So
now,
yeah,
your antenna that you've put in, is that an E field antenna?
yes.
Okay.
Now I'm the wheels are churning on a B field antenna. It's going to be based on Paul's design. The reason why that I kind of go with his is because his work they work and they perform really well. So so this antenna is also based on his design also, and it's been working beautifully. So I'm going to be working on an E field or on an H field antenna or on an H field receiver. The antenna will be I'm going to use Romex actually, Romex cable. I'm working on a multi-channel system with 4 input channels. So you would have one channel for the pulse per second, one channel for the E field, and the other 2 channels for the east, west, and north, south B field. So that's in the works.
Sounds good. You said you had found that the 4-channel chip that you're using for the VLF card.
Yeah. Yeah. So
actual driver Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, there is a 4-channel card that's available for the Pi right now. It's called the Audio Injector Octo, and it technically has 6 input channels and 6 output channels, but 2 of the input channels are blank. They technically don't exist. So it's all.
But you say that uses the TI chip?
No, that uses another chip.
Okay, I thought you had said something about the chip that we're using for the VLF card. You discovered has a driver already written for the Pi.
Yep, it's actually available in the TI Linux kernel.
Uh-huh.
So if you
I'll have to go look.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, for the time being, with the Cirrus Logic chip, it has a limitation where if you're capturing 4 channels, it can only capture up to 48 kHz. So there's that limitation there, and that's why for the VLF card, that's why that I'm going to be using the one from Texas Instruments.
Say, can I break in a minute? Nathaniel, I have the recording. I need to go.
Mhm.
And can I stop the recording at this point?
Yeah,
or
that's fine. It's probably
Okay.
good for.
And then I'll
I'm
pass it
probably-
on to you when you get back.
Yeah, did you record to the cloud or did you record to your computer?
Local.
Oh, okay. So you just send me like a Google Drive share link or something like that.
Okay.
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 Thank you.